Hello, and welcome to Gender Forking, a Twilight Saga podcast. It's a podcast about the Twilight Saga. We're reading Twilight. And my name is Sam.
And I'm Lori.
Doing introductions.
Me too. I was like, I feel like you need more information, but I guess if you've made it all the way to chapter 9,
yeah,
you don't. We're going to talk about Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
We've read chapter 9, Fury.
Just ready to dive right in.
Okay.
Really. Let's do the Forks cast, though.
Yeah, let's do the Forks cast. Today in Forks, it is 42 degrees and cloudy. It's going to rain this afternoon. And it's pretty humid. UV index of 0. Good day to be a vampire.
Wow. No sparkles allowed.
No sparkles allowed. It's a little windy too, but not like wild. Looks like there might be some snow coming up. Not this weekend. Oh, actually, yeah. Snow this weekend.
You could put meteorology on your resume.
I can. I'm a weather reporter.
You're a weather reporter. I feel a real shift now in the meat of the book.
Yeah.
Now that they're basically dating.
Yeah.
Feels very different. There's a lot to unpack.
Yes, there is.
More than there was before, I think, when they were just vibing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go right in there because I feel like I marked down a lot of stuff from their conversation in the car. This is directly they finished having dinner at the restaurant and now they are driving back to Forks from Port Angeles.
Yep.
And chapter 9 is their conversation that they have in the car. This is where all the information comes out for Bella. This is the section where Bella gets confirmation of Edward's vampirism.
Vampirism.
And all the other stuff that she'd been wondering about, which is done so casually in the car.
Yeah.
And not in the forest.
Nope.
When he's standing behind her.
Yeah.
Commanding her to say it out loud.
I think that it makes a lot more sense in this way. Especially because there's a lot more of exchange of information happening. I feel like Edward's and how'd you figure that out?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the movie, he's just say it out loud. Say it. And she's vampire. And he's okay, you did it. Doesn't ask how she figured it out.
True.
Anything like that.
Wouldn't she wonder?
Yeah, I would wonder. It'd
That's
be
true.
Holy shit, the first person to figure this out.
In ever.
Forever. And I'm not going to ask how they put those pieces together so that I can destroy that way of
chain of information.
Figuring out how my whole life works.
How fucking humbling, though, to go about your business for 100 years and no one figures it out.
Except
and
for this 17-year-old girl.
They just get real lax about pretending to be human.
Mm-hmm.
Real humbling. So
Bella is kind of wanting to ask Edward more questions and is kind of also pushing off sharing her theory because although it reconciles with all the information she has about Edward, aside from when Jacob, who doesn't believe in vampires, is speaking, this is the first time that she's about to say the word vampire out loud, and it feels a little foolish to her to share that, even though she is pretty confident that that's what's going on.
Mm-hmm. She gets confirmation of Edward being able to read minds here, and she gets really self-conscious that he can't read her mind.
Yeah.
And thinks that she's a freak for her mind not working in the same way as everyone else's, which I always thought was interesting. I think her reactions here are probably not your normal person's reaction.
Mm-mm.
I think even if I feel if I was receiving this information, I would still be cool with hearing all of it, but I feel it wouldn't be so muted in my reactions.
Yeah.
I'd be yo.
I'd have a lot of questions about what that meant for how he lives his day-to-day life. There's some explanation of the mechanics of mind reading here in this life, this world that Stephanie's built. And it's I can't hear anyone anywhere. I have to be close. The more familiar someone's voice is, the farther away I can hear them, but no more than a few miles, which I thought was pretty far.
Yeah, that's
especially
pretty far. There's a lot of people.
In a small town.
You can probably never go to cities.
No, that would be really overwhelming.
Imagine standing in Times Square.
No.
There's literally
refuse.
millions of people.
or there's some way that he tunes it all out, because it can be distracting and sounds like hell. I feel like we've mentioned this before, especially maybe in Life and Death, that I really wish that we had gotten a more satisfying answer to like explain why Bella's mind can't be read.
Yeah.
Something like a little more interesting than she's been destined to be a vampire shield. Like, I'm not really satisfied with that answer. I wish that there had been a little bit more. Because the way that it is right now just seems like it's a very convenient way for Edward and Bella to remain, like, separate.
It would be so problematic if he could read her mind.
It'd be a completely, like, differently paced book.
Yeah, true.
There's this moment on page 181 where Bella notices Edward's driving and how fast he's going, and she says, "Holy crow, slow down." And I was like, wow, Stephanie, your Mormon is showing. A 17-year-old girl that says, "Holy crow." Like, okay, are you my grandma? She says that. My mom and her husband say "holy jeez" a lot.
Holy jeez.
When I go home, I like will catch myself
saying "holy jeez."
Like almost saying "holy jeez." That's always really fun.
I think that what's interesting about her being afraid to tell this theory about vampires is that, I mean, she's afraid that he'll be angry with her, which I found interesting. I think I don't know if I understand totally why she's afraid that he's going to be angry. Maybe because he just like gets angry all the time. But I mean, he does get angry when she tells him that she doesn't care.
Yeah,
that he's a vampire, which is very like, I don't see race.
Yeah, it is. Oh, you're right. And it's like, it seems like she knows that he tends towards anger in these conversations, but it seems like she's unable to predict what things set him off. Now, so while she thinks this whole vampire reveal is going to be the big moment, it's when she is like, "I'm not afraid of you." Yeah. And I don't think that she was anticipating that being what set him off. Which I think is interesting because she is really perceptive, and it's still taking her a little bit of time to pick up on the things that she says that do upset Edward versus like what she thinks will.
I think that, just going back to what we were saying about how a lot of it isn't very explained, like there's like a little explanation. I think what I would be, besides learning about vampires, what I would like most be questioning is like honestly like the entire structure of the world. It's like if there's this one fantasy creature, like
that would be one of my first questions.
Right, like what else is going on?
What other creatures exist?
Which apparently like they don't necessarily, or they don't know of them anywhere besides werewolves.
Right. So it's like, I don't know, I just feel like, okay, critique of Stephanie and her world building, that's boring. We should have so many more. Yeah. Or there should be a logical explanation. Not logical. There should be an explanation for like all those other things. Like maybe mermaids are not mermaids. They're like vampires swimming. Yeah. Or like maybe the witch trials were not like witches, maybe they were vampires. Yeah. I think she does give some explanation of that for like the Volturi and like things that the Volturi were involved in. Yeah. And like different civilizations not in the continental United States. There's like, I think there's this quote in New Moon where when Bella is learning about the werewolves where she's like, is every fairy tale real? But it ends up not being every fairy tale. Yeah. It's just like interesting she has that moment then.
Yeah. And not now.
It takes like one more supernatural creature to set her over that edge.
But it's so Virgo of her to like only take what she has logically perceived and be like, okay, well it's true because we've proved that it's true. Right. And like nothing else. I'm not gonna like speculate about things.
Or that like we don't lie awake in bed at night thinking about it, which is what I would do. I would be like, I can do magic, I know it. Yeah. Like I know that I'm something.
We have our fun little "how long have you been 17" conversation here. And after he tells her that he's been 17 for a while, he says, "He stared down at me with watchful eyes, much as he had before when he was worried I would go into shock." And I'm like, hot take, you are going into shock.
I really enjoy this dialogue so much better than the movie dialogue.
So much better. I mean, there is dialogue.
Yeah.
I think in the movie, they take this conversation and scrunch it all up with everything that happens between now and the meadow scene. And all the conversations they have now. So they like take that conversation and combine it and like put it in the woods and in the meadow
Yeah.
Which ends up being like way too fast, way too dramatic, because all of a sudden they're in love. Well, although I think the passage about her being in love with him is at the end of this one of these chapters, but
it's not like a guaranteed thing between them.
Yeah, and they don't talk about it. Yeah, there's so much dialogue. I mean, there's between like now and then. I mean, basically, I think every single chapter, except for maybe one or two, between now and then is just dialogue between them. So that feels way more natural. And I think it is naturally intense because of the nature of their situation. But the way it read is intense in like a negative way.
Yeah, but this is like, it's interesting because Edward's like laughing about how she found out this information by tricking or flirting it out of Jacob. He starts laughing even though he knows he's been found out. Like he knows that she is like, she's got it, like her guess was correct. And he's laughing. It's like this lighthearted moment where, I mean, and it was also, I think it makes more sense with the progression of the story. Like he knew that she started to figure it out. So it didn't necessarily come as a huge shock to him, or it shouldn't come as a huge shock to him that she came up with the term vampire. You know? So it's not like he has to have this, like, huge, like, dramatic moment with her. Like, he's probably seen this coming for a little bit. And, like, in addition to, like, potentially, like, Alice understanding that Bella knows, or Bella will know in the future, like, that could probably also inform his, like, lack of surprise that Bella's figured it out and, like, able to have this more lighthearted conversation about it. He
kind of walks her through a couple of the vampire myths. And they start talking about his diet as a vampire. And there's, like, such a funny moment, made me want the Twilight Saga Netflix series. Where he says, "Don't you want to know if I drink blood?" And she said, "Well, Jacob said something about that." And he says, "What did Jacob say?"
Oh my god.
And I was really reflecting in this section about how she never seems to question him being dangerous, even when she's, like, first entertaining the idea of him being a vampire and doesn't know whether or not he kills people. And I'm, like, wondering, like, would that change her viewpoint on him if he was just, like, killing people all the time?
I don't know.
Like, I can't say that it would.
Especially, I feel like in Twilight, because in this book, we haven't had people mysteriously disappearing or dying yet.
Right.
Whereas in the movie, there's the very early on integration of people mysteriously being attacked by animals and dying. And so this doesn't necessarily confront her with the reality that, like, there's violence happening around the town of Forks. Whereas in the movie it does. And you think that maybe she would make the connection, like, oh, you're hurting people, that must be you and your family.
Right. She never narrates, at least, that she's considering that.
No.
I mean, she doesn't narrate everything, but she has this idea from Jacob that they don't hunt people, and she says she's aware that they're not supposed to be dangerous because of that. That gets confirmed, basically. They don't really talk about it. They don't actually... Well, she learned from Jacob that they hunt animals, and then... So I guess she just, like, infers that.
Yeah. She seems like she's inclined to want to believe the best of them, because when she was researching vampires online, she did find the Italian vampires that were, like, good and the enemy of all evil vampires and stuff like that. And she did seem to be like, oh, I hope that's true. So maybe she is kind of thinking like that, but I'm not sure.
I mean, she does seem to be like approaching it from not necessarily a place of optimism, but like she's not going into it like a PI and being like, what's the deal with the Cullens? She's like she's figuring it out. Not only because, like, he saved her life, blah, 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 but because, like, she's interested in him.
She's trying to reconcile her image of them with the reality of who they are and what they do.
I just really wonder if she would be able to reconcile if he or any of them, like, killed people. I mean, obviously we find out later on that he has killed humans. Like, bad ones.
She doesn't kill or care then, but she also has a whole lot more information about him then.
She's in very deep at that point.
I was thinking about how he shares at this moment that he can't sleep. And the vampires can't sleep. And I have always thought about that very, like, sadly. And I've been like, damn, that would suck. And then I was just thinking about that, and I was like, that's honestly the exact same feeling I get when you tell me that you can't nap during the day.
I cannot nap. I'm a vampire.
Yeah, like, you not being able to nap, I'm like...
I'm a vampire because I only sleep at night.
Yeah.
I think this conversation takes a very, like, intense emotional turn for them. That kind of continues throughout the next chapter. When they're talking about the Cullens' diet, and he's saying that they're still dangerous even though they don't eat humans, and he says, we're usually very good at what we do. Sometimes we make mistakes. Me, for example, allowing myself to be alone with you, and she said, this is a mistake. I heard the sadness in my voice. She really hates that idea.
Yeah.
That makes her...
cry.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But I don't know that she's... I can't tell, like, is she sad because, like, she feels like it's him personally being, like... She feels like it's him personally saying he's not interested, or if she's sad because of, like, circumstances outside of their control, or if it's both.
Yeah.
I kind of want to say at this point it's more of the former.
Mm-hmm.
Where does she cry?
At the bottom of 187, she's saying, like...
She cries on 190.
Yeah, she starts to, like... She says, I realized my eyes were wet and I fought against the grief that was trying to overpower me on 187, and then she starts to cry a little bit later, But
she cries a little bit later because he kind of snaps at her.
Yeah.
Oh my god, there's just so much in this little... In these, like, 3 pages.
Yeah. There's some...
First of all...
Okay, yeah.
Okay. On the bottom of 188,
mm-hmm.
he is telling her that he didn't want to leave to go hunting, but it was necessary because it's easier for him to be around her when he's not thirsty.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he didn't want to leave because it makes me anxious to be away from you.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much to unpack.
I was like, wow, sounds super healthy.
Yeah.
There was someone that I knew in college that would have their partner come visit, and I would spend time with their partner, and their partner would be, like, really, like, I don't know, just, like, they would make a long drive to get up to visit them in school, like, every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on a trip with them to an apple orchard, and the partner drove me there, and it was only us in the car. And this partner was, like, telling me that every time they were apart, that they were extremely anxious, and, like, the only way for them to, like, quell their anxiety was to, like, come up for a visit. And I was like, that sounds so bad,
so unhealthy.
Like, the solution to that also is not to give in to that impulse.
Yeah.
It's to
go to therapy,
spend time away from that person in a, like, a constructive, like, healing way,
right.
And, like, to find other alternative methods to, like, calm down that anxiety. Is this where you want to talk about attachment styles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he says it makes him anxious to be away from her, and then on top of page 190, she says she agrees and says it makes me anxious too.
Yeah.
And then he's like, this is wrong, and I'm like, yes it is.
Yeah, it is.
That, first of all, like, why are they feeling anxious?
Yeah.
Like, why?
I think
Edward, is anxious because he thinks that something bad is going to happen to her. Like, something's going to try to kill her.
And where does it come from for Bella?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's the question.
Yeah, because I can kind of understand with Edward, like, in these circumstances, why he's anxious.
Because she's proven herself to be, like, a disaster magnet.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, it might be a similar thing for Bella, because when she had that dream about Edward and Jacob and the wolf and Mike Newton, she had this, like, nightmare, and she was worried for Edward's safety in that dream as, like, not anyone else's. So, like, maybe it's coming from a similar place. Maybe she doesn't necessarily know the extent yet to which he's very strong.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't. They haven't had that conversation about super strength, super hearing, super sight. I mean, I guess maybe super smell because of the tracking in Port Angeles thing, but she doesn't know how not vulnerable he is.
True.
Yet.
Yeah. So that's why it's a little perplexing. I mean, I don't know if I missed something, but on the bottom of 189, they had just talked about how, like, where he's been, like, hunting, and then he, like, wasn't in school because he can't be in the sun. And she said, you might have called me, and he was puzzled, but I knew you were safe, but I didn't know where you were. And then she said, I didn't like it, not seeing you, it makes me anxious too. I just feel... I mean, like, we could probably, like, psychoanalyze Bella to the best of our ability and, like, think about why she might be attaching herself to him in a way that is, like, much more much more intense than necessary or than normal. But he kind of, like... All right. Before I even get to that next paragraph.
Sure. Yeah. I have some things also on page 188 and 189
about that
to return to.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
separate things.
Okay, so do I.
Okay.
There's a lot, like, within 5 pages.
Yeah.
It made me think about not just what they're saying here, but, like, their relationship for, like, the rest of the saga. Especially thinking about the way Bella reacts to him leaving in New Moon.
Yeah.
Is incredibly unhealthy, honestly. Not that it doesn't make sense because of her circumstances, but it's still unhealthy. Those are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
When I read that, I was just thinking about anxious attachment styles. There's this thing called attachment theory, which I'm definitely not an expert in, and I've done, honestly, minimal reading about. But you can take online quizzes about your attachment style, which is a good way.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to do it too. It's a good way to, like, be mindful of how you relate to the people you were closest to in your life and, like, how you rely on other people and how you feel about relationships. And I'm pretty sure it's, like, anxious attachment, avoidant or ambivalent, and secure attachment is, like, the healthy one that everyone should strive for. And anxious attachment is when you, like, get anxious when you are not near your partner, or you constantly are questioning, like, that they love you or something like that. And you, like, you feel like you need tons and tons of reassurance from them that they, like, want to be in the relationship or, like, whatever, really any number of things.
Also sounds like relationship OCD.
What's that?
It's, like, essentially the same thing, but it manifests in, like, compulsive behaviors around, like, romantic, like, insecurity. So, like, asking for reassurance compulsively, not only maybe from your partner, maybe from people around you, maybe from the internet, things like that. I don't have that, but I have another form of OCD, and I've, like, been reading a lot about that online. And I wonder, like, the relationship between that. I don't think that you really fall into those patterns. I think it's a lot of internalized, like, maybe the obsessions and not the compulsions, which, like, you have to have both to qualify for that.
That makes sense. I think that your attachment style, your attachment style does come forth from your upbringing, from, like, relationships that you were raised with, so, like, your relationships with your parents and, like, primary relationships that you had when you were young, because those form the relationships that you're gonna have for the rest of your life. Fun fact. Super fun for everyone. We love that. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, like, there's definitely something there with, like, Bella's a child of divorce. She's had to take care of her mom. Like, she doesn't have a lot of secure relationships because she doesn't have a lot of relationships, it seems. And Edward, I think he has very secure relationships with, like, Carlisle and Esme and, like, most of his family, save for, like, Rosalie, maybe, but obviously he was, like, ripped from his entire existence. Yeah. So, and, like, has been alone for a long time.
Yeah. And he had that period of rebelling that he was, like, completely on his own. Yeah. And, like, had to repair those relationships as well.
Yeah. But I would also say that, like, anxious attachment or any kind of unhealthy relationship is also, like, socially derived. Like, there's a certain amount of what goes on between Bella and Edward and, like, what goes on in just, like, any kind of, like, average teenage relationship you might see on TV that is, like, or around you in real life that, is just, like, existing because that's what we think relationships are like, or, like, that's what we think that you have to feel when you're in a romantic relationship or situation. Yeah. That, I think, is kind of what Twilight is accused of perpetuating. Right. Which I wouldn't say is necessarily false. Yeah. But it's, like, always so tricky because, like, is their situation unique? Is it not? Like, the thing that we were talking about with, I think, last episode when with like the Port Angeles chapter where Edward was getting angry and like wanted to kill these guys. Like that is not because he's a vampire.
Yes.
That's just like
that's because he's been taught to be that way.
Be a
and
savior.
To like to protect women in a like a physical, like violent way.
Right. Protect their virtues.
Yes.
What
a snack.
What a snack.
I was just reading this piece. This is like kind of related. It's because you were talking about Bella having to take care of Renee a lot. I was just reading this thing on Tumblr, and I think I actually might want to pull it up because I want to give credit to the person that wrote it. It was just like a very short little fan fiction moment that was like attached to this original post. Was by Seth Swan at Seth Swan. It's talking about the moment where Bella wakes up and realizes on page 55 that Charlie got up early to put snow chains on her truck, and she's not used to that feeling.
I saw this post as
of
well.
Being taken care of. Yeah. And so someone is like they're talking about like how it's sad that she has not been taken care of in that way by her mother, by Renee. And somebody wrote like a little brief fan fiction about like Charlie noticing odd behavior in Bella at like age 4, and it just leaves off with Charlie calling a lawyer and saying how well versed are you in custody situations.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, wow, an AU where Bella grew up in Forks.
Yeah.
Like with that beginning. I mean, I don't think that. I mean, obviously that's like a piece of fan fiction that's like extrapolated from the very little information, and maybe Bella is dramatizing like how much she does or whatever, but I thought that was very interesting, and could also like be related to like informing how she is in relationships and
for sure. I mean, she is only really in relationships where she's the caretaker. Yeah. So it makes sense that she's like, I guess, worrying about Edward too because she cares about him, so she wants to try to take care of him as well. Yeah. That's the only thing she knows how to do. Not that it's abnormal to want to take care of someone you care about, but it shouldn't be one-sided. Yeah. Which it's not with Charlie or Edward. Yeah. But it is with her, or like is to some extent more than it should be with her most like foundational like primary relationship, which is with Renee. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too because I feel like that pushes up against like the expectations that Edward has for a relationship, probably because I mean he was coming of age in the early 1900s. And gender roles back then, like I don't know, like the way that Bella worries about him is probably not how he would expect to be treated in a relationship either. So I was just reading about anxious attachment, and there's actually a 4th attachment category known as disorganized attachment as well. There is a we'll take these later, but there is a good attachment style quiz that I actually like took one time and then like my phone deleted it, so I never got my results. So I'll have to do it again. Convenient. But there's a good Instagram that I like called Not Your Boyfriend. It's not .yr boyfriend. Not Your Boyfriend. And in their Instagram highlights, there's a relationships thing. A relationships like highlight, and if you just go forward a couple, there's a swipe up link to an attachment style quiz that is really good. I see. And it's like something that you can take over and over again. It'll save you results, and you can like take notes and stuff, and like et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, just to read a professional definition of what attachment theory is, you can go to psycholive.org and look up anxious attachment or ambivalent and anxious attachment and more about what that means. I think that there's definitely roots of that here. Yeah. For sure. And that will probably come up again. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Also in this little section right here when they're talking about his diet still, there's this like infamous line about how he compares like eating only animals and not people to living on tofu and soy milk. We call ourselves vegetarians. Our little inside joke. It doesn't completely satiate the hunger or rather thirst, but it keeps us strong enough to resist most of the time. And I'm like, I mean, we've said this before, I know it, but does Edward think people who don't eat meat are always a little hungry? Yeah, right?
Or like
that you need meat to survive.
Yeah.
Or to be satiated.
And
some vegetarians are.
Like, in the Western world where it seems like... The Western world, TM. In the world that it seems like Edward and Carlisle and, like, all the siblings kind of grew up in, I have... Like, I feel like the vegetarianism is a relatively new concept to that world because the diets were primarily based on meat, and, like, not that vegetarianism is a new concept, period, because it's definitely not in, like, India specifically, but that's, like, a relatively new concept, so, like, what did they call it? What did Carlisle call it? I don't know. It's just it seems like a weird comparison to make, and, like, maybe it makes a little bit of sense, and, like, it's funny or something, but I don't know. No.
I feel like maybe a better analogy would be like, never getting to drink, like needing water, but never getting to drink water. Like you can only drink like tea or Gatorade.
Yeah,
or
that
things
makes
that have
more sense.
water in them, but like,
or like
are not like the healthiest thing for you that like are gonna make you feel better.
Like having an allergy.
Yeah.
And like never being able to eat that food that you really like.
Yeah, right. Or it could be like something that you don't actually really need.
Yeah.
I guess it's like a question of whether, I don't know. It's kind of implied that they are stronger when they have human blood.
Yeah,
which makes sense because that's where the newborns are stronger because they still have human blood in their tissue. But
it's like
it's weird. I don't know.
Being deprived of one vitamin, like
vitamin
D. Can't have vitamin D. And you're just incredibly sad.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's why vampires are emo, because they can't go in the sun.
Yeah, not too far off from how they live.
Yeah. There is this, like, line that I've never, ever forgotten on page 188, where Bella shares her theory about why his eyes change color, or, like, regarding hunger. Mm-hmm. And she says, I've noticed that people... men in particular are crabbier when they are hungry.
I wrote...
Are they?
Ew, what is this line?
Yeah, what is it?
Is it the same... Okay, I don't know this, so, like, I don't know. Let us know. Is this the same in Life and Death? Like, does he...
No, I remember that it was different. Bo was just like, people are crabbier when they're hungry.
That's right.
The two genders are...
Men and people.
Men and people.
Yep, that's fun.
Tell yourself I'm people.
I don't remember, and it has now been, I don't know, 2 years-ish since reading this, but I don't remember, like, Edward makes, like, a comment about how his camping trip was really long and how he got on Emmett's nerves. Yeah. I don't really remember that from Midnight Sun.
I don't remember that either.
But I really want to go back and revisit it.
It would be in there.
Yeah, you'd think it would be. Or he might have just, she might have just written it, like, for 3 days I hunted with Emmett, or whatever.
I would like 3 drawn-out days from Emmett's perspective.
Yes, absolutely.
On page 190, this is right after she says that being away from him makes her anxious. Mm-hmm. And he says this is wrong, and she didn't understand, and says, what did I say? He says, don't you see, Bella, it's one thing for me to make myself miserable, but wholly another thing for you to be so involved. I don't want to hear that you feel that way. It's wrong. It's not safe. I'm dangerous, Bella. Please grasp that. And she said, no. And he said, I'm serious. And she said, so am I. I told you. It doesn't matter what you are. It's too late. And his voice whipped out low and harsh. Never say that.
Could we actually read that as Edward and Bella? Like, in the style that the narration suggests we would? Okay.
Who do you want to be?
I don't know. Who do you want to be?
I don't know. I just read the whole thing.
I'll be Edward.
Okay. So wherever you want.
I don't want to hear that you feel that way. It's wrong. It's not safe. I'm dangerous, Bella. Please grasp that.
No.
I'm serious.
So am I. I told you, it doesn't matter what you are. It's too late.
Never say that.
And then she starts crying.
Yeah. And then the next thing he says is, what are you thinking? And then she's crying, and
he's like, Are you crying?
Are you crying? He sounded appalled, and I wrote, Sam at me.
Yeah, traitor tears they were, betraying
me. I thought traitor tears and betraying me was, I don't know, okay, I don't know literature devices anymore because I'm not an AP Lang, but that's something, right?
What do you mean?
Like, the repetition of that word.
Traitor, tears, betraying me.
And
yeah,
the,
that's
the
like...
repetition of sounds, like...
It's nice. It's like some kind of alliteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
This is also, like, kind of a funny moment. Like, I just feel like a Netflix series would do such a good job at, like, juxtaposing really serious moments with really funny ones.
Yep.
Like, when he's like, are you crying? And she says no, but her voice cracks.
Yeah. Oh.
And they kind of just, like, move over. But I think that paragraph where he's talking about how it's one thing for him to be involved, but something else, or one thing for him to make himself miserable, but something else for her to be so involved. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there regarding agency. It seems really, a little, like, not necessarily, like, I wouldn't use the word patronizing, but almost, like, he's taking a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, like, he'll decide if they're willing to take this risk, or if she's willing to take this risk.
Which, it's complicated, right? Because, like, on the one hand, I feel like she should have equal say, and, like, it should really all be in her hands.
Yeah.
Like, I think it really should all be in her hands, because she's the one with less power in the situation. But also, he should be taking a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, because he does hold more power, and people in power should be able to realize when a relationship is inherently, like, exploitative.
Right.
Of the less powerful person.
Right. I don't have an answer for how that should play out.
I don't
in
either.
This book, honestly.
What would Kimberly Crenshaw say if she was writing an op-ed about
Twilight?
Twilight.
Can you imagine?
No.
I really cannot.
That popped into my head because she wrote this really amazing piece about Anita Hill's testimony.
That's right.
Like, last year.
It
was really good. Anyway. Not that that's the same situation in any way.
No. I don't know. But Bella also, I feel like, could be doing a better job at... It's possible for her to grasp the seriousness of the situation and grasp that danger and really take what he's saying to heart and still agree to, like, spend time with him. Like, she can hold both of those things. But sometimes it comes across, I think, here, not always, but, like, on this particular passage, and probably it's how it comes across to Edward as well, is that she's, like, not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So I understand why he's concerned.
Better him be, like, concerned than him not be concerned at all.
Yeah.
For him to be like, it's super dangerous. YOLO.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not like that.
YOLF. You only live forever. Did I just do something?
Yeah, I think you did. Let's get merch with YOLF.
YOLF. You only live forever.
That's, like, really great because it, like, really harkens it back to YOLO, which was, like, only a couple years after Twilight.
Yeah.
Maybe around the same time.
YOLO.
YOLF. Hashtag YOLF.
YOLF. They kind of pull up to Charlie's house pretty soon. She's, like, sad about it.
Yeah.
She, like, pauses a lot, leaving the car.
Yeah.
He tries to give her his jacket.
I think that this moment in particular, when she's getting out of the car and, like, going back into the house, I feel like there's a really big shift here in, like, navigating, like, they're just starting to navigate so many boundaries. And, like, and that kind of brings me back to, like, them feeling anxious, where she makes him promise that he's going to be at school tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's, like, some sort of, like, abandonment thing there already. Like, already she's feeling like he's abandoned her before, or, like, left her in the dark before, which, like, ends up playing out so much in New Moon. And then at the bottom of 192, he makes her promise not to go into the woods.
Into the woods.
And says, I'm not the most dangerous thing out there. Let's leave it at that. And she says, whatever you say. Like, that is such, like, an interesting, like, boundary that they're like, okay, these are our parameters right now.
Yeah.
And, like, we're consenting to those.
It's also, like, I feel like this moment at the end of a date where she is being dropped off at her house.
You're right.
And there's this question in her brain of, like, I think this sparks a lot of thoughts in her head. Like, he says, Bella, and she says, I turned, and he was leaning towards me, his pale, glorious face just inches from mine, my heart stopped beating. And it's like, in a normal teen relationship, that would be their first kiss.
Yeah.
But it's like this moment where she doesn't explicitly say this in the narration, but I think that since she's already kind of mentioned being sad that she doesn't have that moment happening, like, that would be where the first kiss would be. And now she's kind of like, well, what does that mean for us? Like, how do we navigate those, like, typical teenage relationship milestones? And yeah, like the moment at the end of a date where you're like, oh, am I gonna get kissed right now?
Yeah.
Is like a really big, like, a really big, like, contrast to the very serious, like, life and death things they've been talking about in the car. And they have, like, both things to navigate.
Yeah, it is the most intense first date ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she departs from Edward, goes inside. Charlie's home. It's not even 8 o'clock yet, so it's actually quite early. He's surprised to see her. She kind of is all, like, starting to feel like it's been, like, a bit of a whirlwind. And Charlie asks her if she's all right, which I feel like he never does. He says, maybe you should go lie down. He sounded concerned. I wondered what my face looked like. Then she goes to the kitchen. She's going to call Jessica. He says, I went to the kitchen and fell, exhausted, into a chair. I was really feeling dizzy now. I wondered if I was going into shock after all. I really think that she is. She talks to Jessica for a second on the phone. And then, like, this last page of the chapter, like, there's 4 paragraphs. The 4th one is, like, that famous I'm in love with Edward paragraph. But the paragraphs before that, like, 3 paragraphs, it's such an interesting juxtaposition because, like, they just read, like, shock and or trauma. And it's, like, really interesting for her to, like, experience, like, she showers for, like, a long time, like, with the water too hot, so it's burning her skin, and then she feels like she's freezing, and then she's, like, shuddering violently, and then she's too tired to move, and then she gets into bed and, like, curls into a ball and tries to keep warm, and then it says, my mind still swirled dizzily, full of images I couldn't understand, and some I fought to repress. Nothing seemed clear at first, but as I fell gradually closer to unconsciousness, a few certainties became evident, and then that's the famous paragraph about 3 things. I just felt like I never really noticed, like, that juxtaposition.
I didn't either. I didn't notice, like, this being so abnormal. Yeah. Until now. Right. I thought I was like, it's sweet of Jessica to call and check in on her, even if it is just to, like, get the gossip. Yeah. I guess it's kind of like another redeeming moment for Jessica in this book to check in and be like, oh, so you made it home. Yeah. And then she'd be like, you know, also give me all those fucking details tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. I felt like it was really that description of shock is, like, really interestingly placed. Like, I wouldn't expect her to, like, be like the information that comes out of that to be like that she's in love with him. I mean, I guess it doesn't like, not make sense, but, like, I feel like that would be when, like, all of the distraction of the vampire stuff might slip away, and, like, for all that stuff that happened to her to start impacting her in a really upsetting way. And I mean, it might be that stuff too, like, the vampire stuff is also shocking. Yeah. Like, that totally disrupts her worldview, whether she realizes it or not. Yeah, I just felt like that was weird. Yeah. I think also, like, for her to be so swirly in her head and then to have these three clear thoughts come out at the end is very, like, Virgo. Yeah. Yeah. And I've never really thought about that quote in that way before. Yeah. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. Great vocab. Yes. I don't know. I didn't notice. I mean, I feel like that's the only, like, kind of moment of shock that she has. Yeah. That's not the probably not the physical response you have to falling in love. No. But it shouldn't be. Right. Like, there's something going on. So it's like how I feel when I have a hangover. Right. Yeah. Taking a long shower. Unable to move. Yeah. Yeah. It was, like, kind of jarring. But yeah, that was chapter 9. So let's move on to our mini segment. Love at first bite. Love at first bite. Okay. This person's bio is 21, flirty and thriving. Looking for a cutie to vibe and maybe even escape Port Angeles with. The song is Bella Notte from Disney's Lady and the Tramp. And the photos are all kind of like dramatic, like black and white portrait mode photo selfies.
Uh-huh.
But they're in like more of an urban landscape.
Okay.
But like an urban, like Washington landscape. So there's like, still trees and stuff around, but like they're in a city.
Mm. Is it the waitress?
Yeah, it's Amber. It's Amber the waitress.
I love that.
Thanks. Left or right?
Probably right.
Yeah. Well,
if she's pretty and like my age.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I was thinking like when I was rereading the chapter, the part in the chapter with Amber Port Angeles.
Yeah.
It describes her as having really short black hair, and so I was like, I can't believe it's Sam.
Oh my god. The hostess. There's also the hostess. Too.
Yeah, who's got long blonde hair.
That's right.
This
okay.
is Amber,
I couldn't
the
remember which
waitress.
one.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember which one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Cool.
All right. Should we plug something?
Yeah, let's plug.
Can't believe there are only 5 things in the world and we've already done them all.
Yeah. Should we plug our...
Let's plug our favorite kitchen utensil.
Okay.
My favorite kitchen item is my Dutch oven.
Oh.
I use it
Okay.
every single day. I was originally thinking about a utensil.
Okay.
I did say utensil.
You did.
And then I changed my mind because really I just wanted to talk about the Dutch oven.
Got it. I think my favorite kitchen item, especially recently, has been my pastry brush. I used it to glaze my turkey.
Oh, yeah.
On Thanksgiving. And it came out really good, and it was really satisfying to glaze.
My parents got me a pastry brush for Christmas, but they forgot to give it to me, so it's currently in their utensil drawer.
I love that.
And I keep forgetting to get it. But I'm going to use it to, like, brush pastries.
I also have, like, a little tiny ninja blender.
Yeah.
And I love that for making, like, pesto, sauces.
I love my new wooden spoon.
You have an olive wood spoon now.
It's really nice.
I got for Christmas, I haven't used it yet, but I got a tiny ice cream maker that makes 1 pint of ice cream.
Oh, that's thrilling.
I'm really excited to find, like, a really good base recipe and then just, like, do a bunch of, like, funky, like, mix-ins and stuff.
Totally. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Well...
Follow me at Elsie Lofton on Twitter and Instagram.
Oh, just for fun?
Yeah.
Cool. Follow me at SamKCS. I think on Twitter it's SamKCS17. I never know.
I always try to tag Sam KCS, and sometimes I've done it, and then and then I'll be like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah. Yeah, go to our Patreon for... So, in January, I don't know when... This is probably not coming out in January.
I doubt it.
Yeah. But the January playlist for the Patreon people, the patrons, ? Is a Jasper-themed playlist, and it's very fun.
Yeah. We've been listening to it for, like, the last week or so.
Yeah.
People have, like, come in and out of this apartment, and, like, we'll just, like, put that on. It's very fun.
Yeah, I keep putting it on when I go to work, and I just put on, like, the first song, because I know the first song is Rodeo by Lil Nas X.
Yeah.
And I love that for me. Cool.
Cool.
Do you want me to say it?
I think I started, unless I didn't.
I started.
Oh!
But I don't know if you said it last time.
That's all, forks.
It just feels so natural every time.
Thank you for listening to Gender Forking. All of Season 1 is now streaming.
To stay updated about the podcast, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @genderforking.
For more Twilight content from us, you can follow our blog at bowlingshirtbellas.tumblr.com. For other inquiries, email us at bowlingshirtbellas@gmail.com.
If you're interested in supporting the production and maintenance of this podcast, head to patreon.com/genderforking. The music you are hearing is from O Lucifer.